All right. Hey, everybody. It's with Gun Barrel Coffee. We are live, episode 115. We got Todd Vandermeight here. Vandermeight? Is that right?
Mind.
Yeah. Uh, Go ahead, Todd, introduce yourself again. People.
Hi, Todd Vandermeight, former NRA contract lobbyist and Illinois gun law guru, and some are now taking to calling me the gun Santa. So,
uh, Wait a second. We have to do it this way. All right. So, what's been going on since the last time we talked to you? I mean, we know that the appellate court said no, uh, pretty much bought off by Prisker, as we
nah,
see.
nah, nah. You're mixing apples and oranges here.
Okay.
So what we have is you have the state supreme court uh, said no to the Calkins case, which was a state challenge, one of the state challenges. And because of that, Tom DeVore, who had four cases in Southern Illinois, the district court, where they had combined all four of those DeVore cases, dismissed his challenges. And I think they wrongfully dismissed them because he had a different set of facts. And the
Okay.
other case did not plead the same set of facts. So he is now appealing the dismissal of his challenges to the Illinois gun ban in state court.
Right. So that means our TROs are garbage.
Your TROs are vacated.
Vacated.
They're no longer in existence. Now, if the appellate court agrees that Mr. DeVore has a different set of fact patterns, that he is challenging the three readings rule, which was waived in the Calkins case and never considered by the Supreme Court, and that the fact pattern he has established under equal protection show that his clients are similarly or better situated than some of the people that are exempt under the law. And he's got good facts to make good arguments that he should not be treated the same as the Calkins case and have his case reinstated. Whether or not the appellate court down there will do that, but remember, this is an appellate court that found in his favor at the beginning.
Correct.
Sorry, it's allergy season and my allergies are kicking my ass, and I just had to sneeze there, and I'm trying to save all your viewers all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Last night watching your show, I saw you kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's out here at the club with the ragweed and all the other things. It gets to be a little miserable at times with all that. So that's the state court stuff. You have Mr. Thomas Mag sitting there. He has another state court challenge in Madison County.
Hmm.
Thank God I figured out the mic button on my phone here. Uh, so we've got that going on. That deals with the FOIA card and a couple other things. But then you've got our case, which was argued back in June, pending the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, that has been lumped together with like five other cases. So we're waiting to see what the Court of Appeals does to us in federal court.
All right. So we're still waiting on that decision to come through.
Correct.
That's
That's why
uh,
when you said the appellate court,
I
it's
was wrong.
apples and oranges
Yeah.
between the federal courts and whatever. And don't forget that the Maryland semi-auto ban was argued in December of last year.
Okay. Wow.
And we're still waiting on that one. That's 9 months. I hate it. I hate allergy season. It really messes with me something fierce.
Yeah.
But so we've got that, and the Maryland FOIA card case was argued 6 months ago, and we're still waiting on that. And then Judge Benitez heard the challenges in district court to the California semi-auto bans, and that was 6 months ago as well.
Okay.
So, there's all kinds of stuff. Now you've got Delaware. There's stuff going up there. There's stuff starting in Massachusetts. You have a bunch of these that are going on, and nobody thought we'd be the first ones to get there. But it is highly probable that the Illinois case could become the first semi-auto ban to reach the Supreme Court steps post New York.
Right. How's the fight going in California? I know they've been fighting for
Yeah,
years.
they're they're not doing too bad. They just had a hearing on the California handgun roster case. Um, Unfortunately, one of the lawyers did not do a very good job in his articulation of the case, and the liberal judges out there, they drew a bad panel and kept just jerking them back into, interest balancing stuff that was prohibited under New York and Heller. But they're doing, they've got a good judge for, the ammo background checks, the magazine ban, and the semi-auto ban. All that stuff is looking good. They've been actually making some slow progress. This judge here has, the three-judge panel had the handgun roster. The state has given up on micro stamping, so they are slowly making headway out in California. But there's stuff popping up all around. Now, obviously, the Fifth Circuit in Texas is the hottest one because they're issuing ruling after ruling against all the Administrative Procedures Act stuff between the bump stock rule, the pistol brace rule, and the frame and receiver rule. So with all that, ATF doesn't look like they have a leg to stand on any of this stuff. And now you've got I think FPC or GOA is going after the Biden zero tolerance rule on FFLs.
Right.
So,
And
so what do you think is going to be the key to winning at the Supreme Court level? What shifts it back in our favor?
Well, Trump's judges definitely helped. I mean, before you had Kennedy up there, who seemed like the pivotal vote. So you had him there. He was replaced by Gorsuch. Gorsuch seems to be a pretty solid conservative guy in the way he looks at things. So that then put Judge Roberts, the chief judge, seen as being in the middle. And that's what was slowing things down up until you had Amy Coney Barrett get on the court, and then once she got on the court, it was 6-3. So now Roberts couldn't be the holdout. If Roberts was a holdout, didn't matter because there were potentially five other justices. And look at what happened in the New York case. It was 6-3. Now
Mhm.
Kavanaugh and Roberts wrote a kind of concurring opinion that is being used against us, but I don't think it says everything that the anti-gunners want it to say. And you've got Barrett up there, so you've got the Rahimi case, which is dealing with this civil order of protection for domestic violence, whether or not that's a prohibitor. And they're trying to make it out like this is going to let every wife beater out there have a gun. This doesn't go after anybody convicted of domestic violence. This simply goes after civil orders because there's a very low threshold of due process, is what the court found in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which our side should take to use to have red flag laws tossed, where present danger tossed, and have Illinois' mental health standard tossed. So you've got all that. But along with that, you've got the range case, which is a nonviolent felon in possession trying to get his rights restored out of Pennsylvania coming up. And I think it's highly likely the Justice Department is trying to slow walk that case now, and I think they're doing that because they want Rahimi to take center stage. But I think the trick to Rahimi is going to be Justice Barrett. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they let Justice Barrett write this opinion. And I think this opinion is going to have something to say along the lines of her dissent as an appellate court judge in the Seventh Circuit on nonviolent felons being able to have their rights restored. The trick for our side on the Rahimi case is to focus on the civil side of it. Look, this guy wasn't he's not challenging his conviction because he was never convicted of a DV. He was convicted of a bunch of other stuff that made him a prohibitor. He was simply charged for having an order of protection that made him a prohibited person. And I think what the appellate court in Texas did very well is outline the problem with lack of due process in the civil side. And so I think what our side needs to do is to just further go on down that road of how this is all BS. I just had a friend of mine come up to me today at the range who got arrested on a BS ordinance thing in uh, Chicago for a firearm ordinance violation in Chicago, and because of that, they have now taken his FOID card, and he's got to go through that whole process because that's a condition of bail. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking about condition of bail for an offense that even if you were convicted of is not a prohibiting factor. Under state law, you can be convicted of this offense and it still is not a prohibiting factor under Illinois' bullshit laws. So therein lies the problem with all this stuff.
Oh,
So, so what would it take to change a lot of these laws in Illinois?
Another Supreme Court decision that just says, no, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. If they say that you can't strip somebody of their rights without due process, you can't, which would attack our red flag laws, the clear and present danger stuff, and that all of that has to be up front. And I think the only standard that we should espouse is there has to be an adversarial hearing on the front side. It's not that they get to run and go to court and, strip you of your rights, then you get to go try to prove you're innocent. I think it has to be just the opposite. I think you have to be given notice. You go into court, and then there's a hearing that's adversarial where you get to challenge the evidence being put up against you. And then, and only then, does a judge get to make a decision that this individual needs to have their firearms removed and their rights curtailed in what limited fashion that there is. And they keep expanding, like a couple other states have expanded the red flag stuff. Well, it's not 6 months, it's a year. Well, you could be a convicted murderer, get out of prison, and it doesn't mean your Fourth Amendment right changes, doesn't mean that your Fifth Amendment right changes.
Right.
None of that stuff changes, and you're a convicted murderer. You don't lose your right to free speech. You don't lose your right to counsel. You don't lose any of that stuff. But yet here, they want to treat the Second Amendment wholly differently, and that just because somebody wants to wring their hands about whatever, you lose your rights. And I think that's where our side needs to push back more in a number of corners and just take this stuff. And, the left, when they're in power, they don't hold back. We got Obamacare, we got all this other bullshit because they're just put the gas pedal down to the floor and away we go, take us to court. And you see how that has failed to work out in certain circumstances. That's why I think that this case with the East Coast fishermen is going to undo Chevron. And if the Chevron doctrine goes away, then a lot of the administrative law stuff and a lot of things agencies have been getting away with goes away. But it's going to take another very concise, very clear Supreme Court decision with red lines, and then we can turn around and just beat Illinois over the head with it to sit there and say comply or else. And if they say, well, no, take us to court, okay, then every time we win, we're going to be filing for damages and, deprivation of civil rights under subsection 1983, and you're going to be paying our attorneys, and we're going to use that as a war chest to just keep going.
Do you want to read the question for?
Jamie Burnett, Master Sergeant USMC, retired, said, "Wow, he hasn't been following the various laws. What are they defining as a semi-automatic weapon? Well, we know what that is, and then what's the main argument as to why to ban the weapon?"
Well, the semi-auto stuff, it's, they didn't go into great depth on that, but it's, a cartridge that when you pull the trigger uses recoil or the expansion of the gases to automatically load another round into the chamber. But they've got a list of guns, then they have a features test, and depending on where it falls in, then you have the magazine ban, which are there's three different components of all of that. So that's what they're doing there. What was the second part of the question?
What's the main reason they're trying to ban them? I mean,
Because liberals don't like guns.
right.
And
Right.
they want to sit there and argue that just because it looks like a machine gun, it must be a machine gun. The bullshit that VPC
Yep.
started back in the 90s, and that's been their whole thing. They just tout scary looking guns. And they
Right.
don't like guns, and they don't like people who have the ability to say no, and they don't like people who think for themselves. So they want to have absolute control.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we know you're on a tight schedule. You got, take the wife out, uh, get her some lunch. But we want to say that Cold Dead Hands has been selling really well since
Cool.
the last time we talked, and we gonna have a check for you. What
What was it? 500.
$600
Yeah.
$645
645.
Cool.
from
I used to own a
People
Smith and
Time.
Wesson 645.
Hey, people have been awesome about it. People
Yeah.
have been jumping to support. As soon as they see that we're donating $5 for every bag of that to the fight here, they jump on, and I got people grabbing 2 and 3 bags at a time, and people are certainly coming back for it. So
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. We really appreciate it. I mean, we haven't found that sugar daddy yet to just fund all our litigation for us. So we're doing this all with your small donations, and
Mhm.
every one of those $5 donations helps. It all helps just every little bit, and it gets us closer to the end. And, I met with one of our attorneys for a while earlier today. I'm on the phone with our attorneys almost daily going through stuff, and figuring out the next steps that we're going to make on this. So just because the appellate court is taking a while doesn't mean we're not doing stuff behind the scenes and
Correct.
trying to do everything we can to protect all the Illinois gun owners that we can. And if you look at the video I did the other day on right to repair, I
Mm-hmm.
think you can, if you follow that, you can see how we're thinking in a long game picture. We're not thinking just, what's right here in front of our face. We're looking down the road and why it's so important to do that, to actually have a strategy. Not just, oh, we have to defeat this law, but it's like, this is the three-dimensional chess game that we're playing, and we're playing all three dimensions.
Yeah.
funny. So yeah, Jamie asked. So a Glock 19 is the same as an AR-15 within this law, right? It is.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
A Glock 19 that has a threaded barrel? Yes. A Glock 19 that has a compensator? Yes. A standard off the rack Glock 19? Not so much. But that's the problem with it. It's and so if you have a Glock 19 with a threaded barrel, you can no longer use that as a carry gun. You cannot walk on the public way with that gun. You cannot be out in public, even though it's concealed. You can't carry it because of the way they've restricted what they call a so-called assault weapon.
So crazy.
Yeah.
So do you think by January we're all gonna have to register our weapons? This won't be close to done by then.
No, I think we'll have some answers by then. We may even have another lawsuit. Part of it all depends on what the appellate court comes out with. Because the registration is supposed to open October 1, and some of the things I'm hearing about that they are throwing into their rule is utter bullshit. And once we get our hands on that, we'll be able to talk about it more definitively. But I don't even think they're getting the registration scheme right, but they are full steam ahead to try to put whatever sloppy ass work they can together on their website. And I think they're going to run into problems. Now, whether or not they're going to listen to anybody about how to stay within the confines of the law beats me. But, you know, everybody's going to have to make up their own mind what they're going to do when it comes to registering this stuff with the state. And, it'll be amazing if they don't get the compliance that the same kind of non-compliance that you saw with the pistol brace rule.
Didn't they get Massachusetts or one of those northeastern states only got something like 14%?
They typically average
Yeah.
12, 13, 14% between New York, Massachusetts, or those states when they have that.
Yeah. So,
I mean, does Illinois, if Illinois wanted, can they go house to house? Do they already know who has what?
They don't know specifically, and especially if you bought something in a private transaction, they don't know that.
Right.
And so, it just depends on what judge is going to sign off on those warrants? See, and this is part of the argument I'm making on registration. They could not come into your house and gather that information without a warrant. Then how can they
Nope.
compel us to furnish that information to a state agency?
Sure. Just by claiming that you're a felon if you don't, right? That's it. Just a
Well,
felon.
right, but there's the thing. Either you comply or we're going to brand you a felon. You're going to be subject to felony penalties. And if you lie about what you have, you're going to be subject to perjury. Well, that's a Fifth Amendment issue right there. But the question is, how, if you cannot get that information otherwise, it's not in the public domain, it's not tattooed on my forehead, you can't get that information. In order for you to get that information, you would normally need a warrant supported by probable cause signed by a judge. And if you can't get that information otherwise, then how can you force and compel me to give up that information?
Sure.
Makes sense.
So that's part of the argument that we're making on some fronts, and I think that you're going to hear more about that in the coming weeks.
Can they go? Can they go through the channel of revoking your FOID card if you don't register your weapon?
On what grounds?
The law's there and you haven't. I mean, they know who has an. If you bought an AR-15 at a gun store anytime within the last 10 years, they know who has them, right?
No, they don't. The only thing they know is that you were called in X number of times for background checks. In order for them to figure out what you actually have, they would have to go through your FOID card history. They would have to take all those FTIP transaction numbers, send them to each of the FFLs, if the FFLs are still in business, and then turn around and ask for the 4473s back. And I think that if they start doing that wholesale,
do you think the gun stores can be compelled to turn over that information?
they can on the short term. I think if they go on a wholesale fishing expedition, I think once again we have a Fourth Amendment claim to privacy and unlawful searches and seizures on fishing expeditions to explore throughout the entire judiciary.
Okay.
Mm.
So, I mean, they don't really know what you have.
Right.
They've done some, now I have seen them use these FTIP records when somebody's had a revoked card, but they can't, I don't see any way that they can just simply revoke your FOID card because Todd didn't file a registration affidavit. I don't have anything to register. Prove me wrong. That's why I encourage everybody to be very careful about what you post on social media these days. But
That's correct.
all right.
Never post any of that information.
I mean, everybody likes to show some videos of them shooting and stuff
Yeah.
like at our zombie shoot for our club that's coming up, September 9th, ASC zombie shoot. Guys post videos of them doing cool shit, fun stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
I get it, but is state police going to start scrubbing every FOID card owner's, social media stuff to see what there is?
Right.
I don't know if they don't have the manpower to police what they've got. I don't know if they've got the manpower to be doing all over this stuff. And I've had conversations with state police guys saying, we're not going to anybody's house. If they do that, they can have the badge.
Yeah.
So I don't think they have the support in law enforcement that they think they have. I think that you have, the question is, how are they going to get the judges? Remember, Illinois judges are elected. They go to some judge in Effingham County and get him to sign off on a bunch of BS warrants to go look for people's guns. How long all those warrants and affidavits have to be made public at some point in time. What do you think that judge's chances of re-election in Effingham County are if those come to light?
Nope.
True.
Well, so out of 102 counties in this state, I would likely say that in 95 of them, that's going to be very, very problematic.
Agreed. Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, they said last time they weren't going to enforce it.
There are a ton of ways to fight back on this stuff within the system. And at some point in time, if we prevail in some of the schools of thought that I have, then every one of those cops now becomes liable for, civil rights violations, and we would seek to revoke the qualified immunity. I don't care. Just because you claim to be doing it under color of the law, if it's an unconstitutional law, doesn't matter. And I would really like to see, and if they want to go to the federal judiciary, all right, let's go see what that looks like.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
right.
Well, there you guys have, man. Still in the fight. Todd's still out there fighting for us. There's still some hope. So hopefully, as we get closer and closer to the end of the year here, we'll have
There's
some better
always
matches.
hope.
Hopefully,
There's always hope.
A hunting buddy of mine said, as long as there's lead in the air, there's hope. So,
there you go.
I mean, when you're shooting waterfowl and whatever, but, it's not over. We are a long, long ways from being over. It's just going a lot slower than people want. One of the things I've advocated for is we should file a brief with the Supreme Court. It says, look, they passed this law in 72 hours, and here we are 7 months later, still trying to retain our rights. Or
Sure.
reclaim our rights. That's not justice. That's not justice. You're putting businesses under. You're stopping people from acquiring lawful goods. This is not impacting the criminals at all. Has the murder rate
No.
in Chicago go down? No. Have the scores on the shootings on Monday mornings at the Tribune gone down? No. So,
All right.
Well,
all right,
thank
guys.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thanks
your
so much for
time.
joining us. Appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you. Thanks for the contribution.
Hey,
And if you guys want to help contribute too, easy way to do it is buy a bag of Cold Dead Hands from Gun Barrel Coffee, or reach out to Todd directly if you want to help. If you have more support.
No problem.
Todd, where can they reach you at?
You can find me on Facebook. I use my own name, Todd Vandermeight. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Freedom Steel. Just look for the one with the bulldozer on it. That's where I do all my updates on litigation and how I see things. Or you can get a hold of me through Aurora Sportsman's Club.
So there you go. And go check out Todd's channel. Subscribe, follow him, generate some more activity. The more people we get involved, the better. The more people we're informed,
Thanks, guys.
the better we are all.
Thank you.
Todd. Have a great afternoon.
I'll get a hold of you soon, Todd.
Yep. See ya.
Yeah, bye. So everybody, hey, thanks for joining us today.
Especially to Warsaw. Thanks for coming in.
Yes.
Better late than never. Jamie, thanks for your question. Awesome.
I guess we're done, and
I guess we're at. Just keep up the fight, man. We're getting there. We're making little projects slowly, but I think we'll get something happen.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to keep your head on a swivel.
I guess have a great weekend.
Bye.